Hello there. I'm going to start with a little story, like I often will. In this story, imagine a village of people in a very starving place, like in some remote island or distant place on the other side of the world, very third world, very poor, very impoverished, hard to get clean water, hard to get any kind of good nutritional food. It's a lot of poverty and hunger. And then imagine that in the middle of the night, someone delivers a lot of large boxes filled with fabulous food, great food, good, nutritional, healthy food, lots and lots of crates of this food and water and all this, exactly what they need. But then, after that delivery happens, someone else comes along and stamps dangerous, rotten food can kill you. Bad food, bad quality. They put words on the false words on the crates to make people afraid that this, if you eat this, you're going to die. It's bad for you. It's spoiled, it's rotten, it's lousy. So then when the people find this, they think, oh, is this good? And then they read it and they go, oh, we can't eat this. This is terrible. Then the animals come and sniff it out and tear into it, and all these animals just devour it and they have a feast. So the animals get all the good food because the animals can't read. Instead, the animals just smell it out, and the animals just can tell, they know this is good food. This is good stuff here. They just know it. Okay? In a similar way, God gives everyone an ability, a supernatural ability to sniff out truth versus lies and deception. But here's the key. You have to genuinely be hungry for the truth. Okay, if you are genuinely hungry for truth, so hungry for truth that you're willing to come to the point where you realize, yesterday I may have been wrong. I might have to unlearn everything I believed was true. If you're constantly in that mindset and still hungry for truth at the same time, then that supernatural gift will work. It will work. You'll sniff out truth. You'll be led to places that find truth in a supernatural way. Okay? Now, I don't want to be like one of those YouTubers that says, God wanted you to find this video, or give some kind of selling psychological trick that makes you think that, oh, this was no accident that you found this video, because that's always just a method people try to get to run up numbers. I never care about that. But I know that this phenomenon works, okay? As long as you are a person who's genuinely, really, truly hungry for truth. But most people aren't, okay? Most people are on what Jesus called the wide road, okay? Most people are there. And I know that Christians will go to a big church and then they'll think that big church is the narrow road, and that the wide road are a few people outside with devil horns. They're in the wide road. And of course, that's not what the wide road means, but they're both wrong. What the wide road, narrow road means is the wide road is where you have friends all around you that are on the same page, and you like that. Okay, so you want to stick with a club where you're with people that are on the same page all the time. Okay, and there was a time in my path when I thought, gee, I wish I wouldn't have become an engineer. I wish maybe I would have become a pastor or a theologian, and then had a church. But now I realize that as soon as you do that, the problem with that is you're locked in. You're locked into those tenets once you do that. So what that means is that whatever age you are, maybe you're 30, right? At age 30, you commit to, at age 30, I found all truth. And then by the time you get to 40 and 50 and 60 and 70, you're still locked into your age 30 decision to commit to those tenets, unless you decide to bail out, and then everybody there will think that you've gone cuckoo and you've lost your salvation, and that you're backsliding, etc. So I'm glad I didn't commit, because I would have necessarily stunted growth in wisdom. And in this life, you should constantly be learning more and more and more. And the more you learn, the more you'll realize how much there is you don't know. Okay, so in this little puff of vapor life, okay, which is like kindergarten in comparison to the rest of the learning and ascending that you do afterwards. In fact, it's even less than kindergarten. It's like day one of kindergarten. Compared to that, I mean, we know very little. But the more you learn, the more you realize you don't know. Okay, but the foolish person always thinks they've arrived. The people that know the least think they know the most, right? It's like the Dunning-Kruger effect. If you don't know what that is, look that up. Dunning, D-U-N-N-I-N-G, Kruger, K-R-U-G-E-R. Okay, that explains, well, the stupidest people think they're the smartest. And then when you start really learning, you start realizing, wait a minute here, maybe I'm not as smart as I thought I was. And it's a real thing. And you see it everywhere in life. Okay, so back to this hunger for truth. Think back to the early days of, if you remember, if you're old enough like I am, the early days of alternative media. Right, before alternative media, all there was like the big three or big four: ABC, NBC, CBS, Fox. That was it. They owned media. Right, when Ronald Reagan was president, the media hated Reagan, and there was no alternative media to speak up for him. But then when we started having alternative media, then they start panicking, and they want to sell the concept that you should only trust big media. In other words, they try to sell the narrative, they try to sell the idea that the amount of truth is proportional to their budget. Right, and people still do believe this, right? Some people only trust CNN because they look like they have a big budget, therefore they must have big truth. And somebody with a smaller budget, like the people that were launching conspiracy theories, which now everybody knows are true, right? They're kooks. You can't listen to that, right? So we've seen that with politics and in media, but you also see it in churches now. Okay, you see this in churches now. There are pastors, and they'll say, don't listen to somebody who's making a video from home. They don't know what they're talking about. That's dangerous. They wouldn't be threatened if they trusted the truth principle that I'm telling you. Okay, truths are like light, and falsities are like darkness. And darkness can be deceptive, but if a person's genuinely seeking light, they're going to find it. If you're genuinely seeking truth, you're going to find it. You're going to weed it out. You're not going to have the wool pulled over your eyes if that's what you're hungry for, just like the animals that found the food in the boxes, right? God gave the animals the ability to find food. And he gave you and your soul the ability to find truth if that's what you really want and that's what you're really hungry for. Okay, so comment, let me know what you think, have any questions, and then I will try to make future videos where I will respond to comments, questions, and such. If I haven't seen you in a while, and you're an old friend, welcome, thank you for watching me. Not sure if we'll always still agree, because I keep changing, and I keep trying to sniff out truth. And I know that when one person changes, everybody else will think, oh, that person's backslidden, they've lost their mind, they're kooky. And sometimes I guess people can backslide and become kooky. But when you break away from the pack, when you break away onto the narrow road, and when Jesus talked about the narrow road, the narrow road it's a lonely place. It's so narrow that it's lonely. And it's not fun, because the wide road people that you break away from, they're all thinking, that guy's kooky. I mean, you want to face that. When Jesus talked about hating your mother and father, I don't think he meant that you actively decide to hate them. I think what it means is are you willing to accept a complete break off in the relationship that becomes hateful because they think you're a flake. You're following, the long-haired hippie guy, Jesus, who's completely going against all the stuff that they believed with all this new teachings, which was called The Way, the name of the channel here, because Jesus taught the way, and that's what I plan to get more into, is what Jesus really taught, the way that will make you, if you want to follow what Jesus said, you people are going to think you're flaky when you really get into it. And I have another video here, The Emperor's New Clothes, that I reposted. And I'll often talk about that because that really, there's so many times that the Emperor's New Clothes story fits. If you're not familiar, please watch The Emperor's New Clothes. Okay, in The Emperor's New Clothes, it's a child who says, wait a minute here, the Emperor is naked. Well, what if it was a grown-up that had said, wait a minute, the Emperor is naked? Then everybody would have said, oh, this guy's, they would have been shunned and kicked out into a narrow road. Okay, so when you notice things and actually speak them out that everybody else seems to pretend also see because they want to fit in, when you break away from that, if you're a grown-up, then that's what the narrow road really is. It's going out there on your own, following your own path that others have followed, but not in packs. It's impossible in packs because only a few people really want to get into that and seek that. And I'm not saying I have it because believing this principle means you believe that if you're telling the truth, then other people will supernaturally find it and say, he's onto something here. And if not, well, then it won't. And you don't have to worry about it. You don't have to try to sell it. You don't have to try to bamboozle anybody. So that's where I find myself going. And if people seem to latch on to that and benefit, that's great. And we'll see. So again, if anything you want to talk about, comment about, criticisms, sure, we can discuss that. So God bless. See you next time. Bye-bye.